It was Christmas Eve 1945 in a small town in West Virginia. A family of 11 was celebrating the holiday together. Children playing with new toys, a warm house, a father who had built everything from nothing, a mother who loved her children more than anything in the world. By Christmas morning, 5 of those children were gone. Maurice, 14 years old, Martha, 12, Louis, 9, Jennie, 8, Betty, 5 years old. The house burned to the ground in the early hours of Christmas Day. But when investigators searched the ashes, they found something that made no sense at all. No bones, no teeth, no remains of any kind. 5 children, a house fire that lasted less than an hour, and not a single trace left behind. The fire chief said they burned completely. Their father said that was impossible, and for the next 44 years until the day she died, their mother never believed her children were dead. This is the Sodder children case, and 80 years later it remains one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries in American history. George Sodder was born in Sardinia, Italy in 1895. He came to America alone at 13 years old with nothing. He found work on the Pennsylvania railroads, carrying water to laborers. He saved money. He built a life. By 1945, George had married a woman named Jennie, started his own trucking company in Fayetteville, West Virginia, and together they had raised 10 children in a house they owned on a quiet stretch of Route 16. They were a respected family, hardworking, community-minded. George was known for his strong political opinions. He was openly critical of the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini and made no secret of it, even in a town with a significant Italian immigrant population. That outspokenness would later become a critical piece of the puzzle. 2 months before the fire in October 1945, a traveling life insurance salesman came to the Sodder house. George declined to buy a policy. The salesman's response was not the frustration of a man who had lost a sale. He told George his house would go up in smoke. He said George's children would be destroyed. He said the cause would be the dirty remarks George had been making about Mussolini. George reported the threat. Nothing was done. That same month, a stranger approached George and offered to fix his fuse boxes, warning him that if they were not repaired, they would catch fire. George declined. He had recently had the entire house rewired and cleared by an electrician. And in December 1945, the same month as the fire, some of the Sodder children noticed 2 strangers in a car watching them on their way home from school. Every one of these details would later haunt the investigation. Christmas Eve, 1945. The Sodder house was alive with celebration. Marion, the oldest daughter, had come home from her job at a downtown store with new toys for her younger sisters. The children were so excited, they begged their mother to let them stay up past their usual bedtime. Jennie agreed. At 12:30 in the morning, Jennie was woken by the telephone ringing. She answered it. A woman she did not recognize asked for a name Jennie did not know. In the background, Jennie could hear voices, clinking glasses, and what she later described as weird laughter. She hung up and checked on the children. Lights were still on, curtains were drawn. She assumed the older children had gone up to the attic to sleep and simply forgotten to close the house down. She went back to bed. At 1 in the morning, she was woken again, this time by the sound of something hitting the roof hard. A thud, then a rolling noise. She went back to sleep. At 1:30 in the morning, she woke to the smell of smoke. She got up and found fire burning in George's office, the same room that housed the fuse box and the telephone wires. She woke George. They escaped with 4 children, Marion, Sylvia, John, and George Jr. The staircase to the attic was already in flames. They could not reach the 5 children sleeping above. George tried to re-enter the house through a window to reach them. He broke the glass and reached inside. He sliced a deep wound across his arm. The heat drove him back. He ran to where he kept his ladder, always propped against the side of the house for exactly this kind of emergency. The ladder was gone. He tried to use the water pump to fight the fire. It would not work. He ran to the car to drive for help and tried to use the vehicle to reach the upper floor windows. The car would not start. Jennie tried to call the fire department. The telephone was dead. A neighbor called for help instead. The fire department did not arrive until 8 the following morning. 7 hours after the fire broke out, when they arrived, the house was gone. The fire chief later admitted he could not drive the department's fire truck. A cursory 2-hour examination of the site was conducted. In a case involving 5 missing children, 2 hours. No bones were found, no teeth, no remains of any kind. The children were declared dead. George Sodder was a practical man, not prone to fantasy, not prone to hysteria. He knew what fire did to human bodies. He had seen it. He knew that even in the most intense house fires, bones survive, teeth survive. Some fragment of physical evidence always remains. It is scientifically documented. The National Fire Protection Association confirms it. Teeth are among the most fire-resistant materials in the human body. 5 children, not one bone, not one tooth, not one fragment. George Sodder did not believe his children had died in that fire, and the evidence that emerged in the following weeks gave him every reason to keep believing. A bus driver who had passed through Fayetteville late on Christmas Eve came forward. He reported seeing several people throwing what appeared to be balls of fire at the Sodder house from the road. When the snow melted in the spring, a small, hard, dark green rubber object was found in the brush near the house, something that had no business being there and was never conclusively identified. George's ladder, which had been propped against the house every single day, was found thrown into a ravine nearby. It had not fallen. It had been placed there deliberately. The private investigator, the family, later hired, discovered something even more disturbing. The fire chief, F.J. Maurice, had apparently found what he described as a heart among the ashes of the house. He had secretly packed it into a box and buried it rather than reporting it. This was confessed to a local minister who confirmed the account to George Sodder. When confronted, Maurice admitted to the story. He took George to the spot where he had buried it. A box was there. Inside was flesh, but a local funeral director who examined it declared it was fresh beef, liver that had never been exposed to extreme heat. Someone had placed fresh meat in the ground and buried it where the fire chief said he had buried a human organ. And there was one more detail that investigators never adequately explained. The insurance salesman who had threatened George 2 months before the fire, the man who said the house would burn and the children would be destroyed, was a member of the coroner's jury that ruled the fire accidental. In the weeks after the fire, the sightings began. A woman named Ida Crutchfield, who ran a hotel in Charleston, reported seeing 5 children matching the descriptions of the missing Sodders approximately 1 week after the fire. She said they were accompanied by 2 women and 2 men, and that the group checked into her hotel. By the time investigators arrived, they were gone. Other witnesses reported seeing the children in a car on Christmas Eve night, alive, moving away from Fayetteville. The FBI was contacted. J. Edgar Hoover himself replied to the Sodders' letter. He wrote that the matter appeared to be of local character and did not fall within the investigative jurisdiction of his bureau. The local police and fire departments declined the FBI's offer to assist. The West Virginia legislature held 2 hearings into the case in 1950. Afterward, the governor and state police superintendent told George and Jennie the case was hopeless. They closed it at state level. The FBI investigated briefly as a possible interstate kidnapping. After 2 years, they dropped it with no results. George and Jennie refused to stop. They printed flyers. They offered a reward, first $5,000, then $10,000. They put up a billboard on Route 16, right, where the house had stood, with photographs of all 5 children and the question that consumed the rest of their lives. What was their fate? Kidnapped, murdered, or are they still alive? That billboard stood on that highway for nearly 4 decades. Then in 1968, 23 years after the fire, Jennie received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Postmarked from Central City, Kentucky. Inside was a photograph. A young man, approximately 30 years old. Dark hair, strong features. On the back of the photograph, someone had written, "Louis Sodder, I love Brother Frankie." Hey, little boys, A90132 or 35. Louis would have been around 30 years old in 1968 if he had survived the fire. The family believed the photograph looked exactly like Louis would have looked as an adult. George and Jennie hired a private investigator to travel to Kentucky and find the sender or the young man in the photograph. The investigator took his fee and was never heard from again. George Sodder died on August 16, 1969. He was 73 years old. He never found his children, but he never stopped believing they were alive. Jennie kept the billboard standing. She kept the case alive. She kept writing letters. She kept waiting. She died in 1989, 44 years after that Christmas Eve fire. The billboard came down shortly after her death. Their youngest surviving daughter, Sylvia, who had been 3 years old the night of the fire, spent the rest of her life trying to honor her parents' search. She died in 2021. Her final words on the case were the same as her mother's first. She believed her siblings had survived that night. Here is what we know for certain. 5 children vanished on Christmas Eve, 1945. No physical remains were ever found in that house, despite the fact that bones and teeth routinely survive even the most severe fires. The ladder that could have saved them was found thrown into a ravine. The telephone line had been cut. The water pump had been disabled. The fire department took 7 hours to arrive. The man who threatened George 2 months before the fire sat on the jury that declared it accidental. A fire chief secretly buried what he claimed was a human organ found in the ashes, which turned out to be fresh meat that had never been in a fire. Witnesses saw the children alive after the fire, and 23 years later, a photograph arrived with no return address showing a man who looked exactly like Louis Sodder would have looked as an adult. Were 5 children kidnapped on Christmas Eve while their house burned as a distraction? Did someone want George Sodder silenced badly enough to take his children? Or did 5 young people survive that fire and live somewhere else, never knowing? Their real family spent 44 years waiting for them to come home. Nobody knows. Nobody has ever known. Subscribe to MistFiles. We open the files nobody closed properly. A new case every week, and the truth is always stranger than the story they told you.